Hong Kong, 1980s. The sun hadn't fully risen yet when Jackie Chan woke up that day, feeling a different weight in his chest. It wasn't fear exactly. He had faced enough fear to fill 10 lifetimes. It was something deeper, a silent intuition he had learned to recognize after so many years risking his body in the name of art. He got up from the modest hotel bed where he was staying during filming, walked to the window, and watched the city slowly awakening. On the streets, vendors were already preparing their stalls. The smell of food began rising through the buildings, and life followed its natural rhythm, completely oblivious to what was about to happen on that film set a few kilometers away. Jackie grabbed the script from the table and reread the day's sequence for the 10th time. Scene 47, rooftop chase. Jackie jumps from building to tree, descends through branches, and continues fleeing. Simple on paper, deadly in practice. But it was exactly this type of scene that had transformed him from an unknown stuntman into one of the biggest Asian action cinema stars. He touched the scars on his left arm, a memento from a fall 3 films ago. Then he ran his hand over the rib that still hurt when it rained, an inheritance from a poorly calculated fight scene. His body was a map of risks taken, bets won, moments when luck decided to stay on his side. But how long would luck continue to be his ally? To understand why Jackie Chan was willing to risk everything that morning, you need to go back years, to a boy named Chan Kong-sang, born into a poor Hong Kong family. His parents worked for the French ambassador, his father as a cook, his mother as a housekeeper. Life was hard, money scarce, and opportunities almost non-existent. When Jackie was only 7 years old, his parents made a decision that would change his life forever, enrolling him in the Peking Opera Academy, a rigorous school where children were trained in martial arts, acrobatics, singing, and theatrical performance. What seemed like an opportunity was actually a meticulously organized hell. The school's master, Yu Jim Yuan, was known for his brutal discipline. Training started before dawn and ended when the children could barely stand. They practiced postures for hours, repeated movements to exhaustion, and any mistake was punished with bamboo stick beatings. Jackie spent 10 years in that school. 10 years waking up in pain, sleeping hungry, dreaming of freedom. But it was there that he developed superhuman physical endurance, precision in movements, the ability to withstand pain, and, most importantly, the mentality of never giving up, no matter how difficult it got. He remembered one time when he was about 12, when he made a mistake during an acrobatic training. The master made him repeat the movement 300 times in a row, without pause for water or rest. At the end, Jackie was trembling, sweating, on the verge of fainting, but he completed all the repetitions. It was at that moment he understood something fundamental. His body could go far beyond what his mind thought possible. When he finally left the academy at 17, Jackie was a movement machine. He could fall from impressive heights, perform acrobatics that seemed to defy gravity, and withstand impacts that would break ordinary people. But the world wasn't waiting for him. Kung Fu cinema was saturated with Bruce Lee imitators, and Jackie was just another kid trying to get work as a stuntman. The first years in the film industry were humiliating. Jackie accepted any job: background stuntman, extra in crowd scenes, fall coordinator for actors who earned 100 times more than him. He watched other actors arrive in limousines, surrounded by assistants, while he arrived by bus, carrying his own backpack with extra clothes and bandages for inevitable injuries. But Jackie had something most didn't have: a unique combination of physical ability, comic timing, and an absolutely insane willingness to put his body at risk. While other stuntmen hesitated before a dangerous scene, Jackie was already mentally calculating how to execute it in the most spectacular way possible. His big break came when a director, desperate to create something different from the serious Bruce Lee films, bet on Jackie to star in a kung fu comedy. The film was Snake in the Eagle's Shadow, 1978, followed by the explosive Drunken Master the same year. Suddenly, Jackie Chan was no longer an anonymous stuntman. He was a rising star. What made Jackie different was his approach. He didn't just want to fight on screen. He wanted to make the audience laugh, be surprised, feel each impact. And the only way to achieve this, in his view, was to do everything for real. No stunt doubles for the most dangerous scenes, no digital tricks, which didn't even exist yet, no safety nets when possible. Each film became a competition with himself. How to surpass the craziest scene from the previous film. How to leave the audience even more impressed. This obsession led him to create some of the most iconic action sequences in cinema, but also put him in increasingly dangerous situations. Returning to that fateful morning, Jackie arrived at the film set at 6:30 a.m. before almost the entire crew. He always did this. He needed to feel the space, walk through the set, visualize each movement before executing it. It was like a ritual, a way of conversing with the environment and preparing his body and mind for what was to come. The set was a collection of old buildings in a peripheral area of Hong Kong that would be demolished soon, perfect for filming. because it meant they could do practically anything without worrying about damage. The main building had 4 floors, with a flat roof where the chase would take place. About 5 meters away, there was a tall, old tree with thick branches that seemed robust enough to support the weight of a man in motion. Jackie climbed to the roof and stood at the edge, measuring the distance to the tree. 5 meters, maybe 5.5 meters. With enough momentum, he could reach the lower branches, grab them, and use his own weight to swing down to the ground, creating an impressive visual sequence. "Good morning, Jackie," the voice came from behind him. It was Ah Lung, one of the veteran stuntmen on the crew, someone who had worked with Jackie on several films. "Are you really thinking about doing this without a net?" Jackie smiled, that characteristic smile that mixed confidence with a hint of madness. "The scene looks better without a net. More real, more deadly too," Ah Lung replied, lighting a cigarette. "That tree looks solid, but the branches might be rotten inside, and the wind is strong today." "I know," Jackie continued, looking at the tree, calculating angles. "But we can test the branches first, and if I adjust the jump angle, I can reach the thicker branch." Ah Lung took a long drag and slowly exhaled the smoke. "I've worked with many brave guys, Jackie, but you're not brave. You're something else. I don't know if it's genius or madness." "Maybe both," Jackie replied, and this time he wasn't smiling. At 8 a.m., the full crew had arrived. The director, Chen Wei, was a nervous man who always seemed to be on the verge of a heart attack during filming with Jackie. He climbed onto the set with a bottle of antacid in one hand and the script in the other. "Jackie, let's talk about this scene," Chen began, already defensive. "Maybe we can use a stunt double for the jump and then cut to you in the branches." "No." Jackie's answer was firm but polite. "The audience knows my face. If we use a double, even if it's just for 2 seconds, they'll notice in the theater. It ruins the immersion." "But the risk." "I manage the risk. It's what I've been doing for years." Chen sighed. He knew there was no point arguing. Jackie Chan was both his greatest asset and his greatest nightmare. The films were successful precisely because Jackie did the impossible, but a serious accident could end both their careers, or worse. "At least let us put some mattresses underneath," Chen begged. "Mattresses in view," Jackie negotiated, "but positioned so they don't appear on camera, and I promise to aim for them if something goes wrong." It was the maximum concession Chen would get. The crew spent the next 2 hours preparing the scene. Cameras were positioned at 3 different angles, one on the roof of a neighboring building to capture the side view of the jump, another on the ground to capture the fall through the branches, and a third operated manually following Jackie during the rooftop run. Meanwhile, some stuntmen climbed the tree to test the branches. They swung, pulled, applied weight. The branches seemed solid. "They should hold," was the verdict. Should, not will, but should. In action cinema, that distinction was often all that separated an incredible scene from a tragedy. Mattresses were strategically positioned around the tree's base, covered with leaves and dry branches to camouflage. It wasn't complete protection. If Jackie fell from the wrong height or at the wrong angle, the mattresses would only serve to cushion the fatal impact into something slightly less fatal. Jackie used this time to prepare mentally. He had a specific ritual for dangerous scenes. First, complete stretching. Not the quick stretching people do at the gym, but a 40-minute sequence that worked every muscle, every joint, preparing his body like an Olympic athlete prepares for the most important competition of their life. Then, he walked through the sequence in slow motion, visualizing each step. 3 strides to the roof's edge, momentum with the right leg, the strongest, arms extended forward, eyes fixed on the target branch, hands close around the wood, body swings, feet search for the next support, descend, jump, roll, stand up. In his mind, it was perfect, fluid, beautiful. Reality was rarely so kind. At 10:30 a.m., Chen gathered the crew. "All right, everyone. This is a one-take scene, so it needs to be perfect. Jackie will run across the roof chased by the villains, jump to the tree, descend through the branches, and continue running on the street. Cameras, you know your positions. Sound, I need clean ambient. We can add effects later." Jackie. Chen looked at his star with a mixture of admiration and fear. "Be careful." Jackie nodded. He wore a simple outfit. Jeans, white button-up shirt, canvas sneakers, no armor, no hidden padded protection. If the audience was going to see Jackie Chan fall and get hurt on screen, he needed to feel each impact for real so the reactions would be authentic. 3 stuntmen dressed as villains positioned themselves behind Jackie on the roof. They wouldn't need to do much, just run after him, creating the sense of pursuit. The focus would be entirely on Jackie and the impossible jump. "Last chance to change your mind," Ah Lung said quietly, standing next to Jackie. "If I changed my mind every time I was afraid, I would never have made any film," Jackie responded. But he placed his hand on his friend's shoulder for a moment, a quick gesture, almost imperceptible, that meant more than words. The wind had increased since morning. The tree's leaves swayed vigorously, and Jackie could hear the creaking of branches. He looked at the sky. Clouds moved quickly, and the sun appeared and disappeared, creating constant changes in lighting. Bad conditions. But they had a schedule to keep. a tight budget, and a building that would be demolished in a week. There was no time to wait for the perfect day. "Positions!" shouted the assistant director. The crew fell silent. This was always the tensest moment, those seconds before action, when everyone held their breath, aware they were about to witness something extraordinary or something terrible. Jackie positioned himself at the starting point, about 10 meters before the roof's edge. He swung his arms, releasing tension from his shoulders. He jumped a few times in place, testing the sneaker's grip. He breathed deeply 3 times. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. "Camera 1 ready. Camera 2 ready. Camera 3 ready." Sound rolling. Chen looked at Jackie one last time. Jackie nodded. "Action." Jackie exploded into movement. His feet hit the roof's concrete with rhythmic force. Pa 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 pa, each stride increasing his speed. The 3 stuntmen ran after him, shouting improvised dialogue in Cantonese. The wind threw Jackie's hair back, and he could feel the adrenaline flooding his system, that chemical cocktail that transformed fear into focus. 3 meters to the edge. 2 meters. 1 meter. He planted his right foot on the exact spot he had mentally marked and propelled his body upward and forward. For a brief moment, he was flying, really flying, with nothing below him but 5 meters of air and then hard concrete. The human brain processes information strangely during moments of extreme danger. Time seems to slow down. Jackie, in those suspended seconds in the air, had time to notice several details. The sound of cameras whirring, a bird passing on the left, the smell of moisture coming from the tree, and, most importantly, the fact that the tree was no longer in the same position he had calculated. The wind. The damn wind had pushed the branches a few centimeters to the side. It didn't seem like much, maybe 10, 15 centimeters at most. But when you're flying through the air at considerable speed, trying to grab a specific target, 15 centimeters can be the difference between success and disaster. Jackie realized this mid-jump, but there was nothing he could do. He couldn't go back, couldn't change his trajectory. All he could do was extend his arms even further, open his hands as wide as possible, and hope his reflexes would compensate for the miscalculation. His hands reached the branch, but not the thick branch he had aimed for. Instead, he managed to grab only a thinner, higher branch with just 3 fingers of his right hand and 2 of his left. The impact forced an involuntary grunt from him. The weight of his body, amplified by the jump's momentum, pulled the branches down. Jackie heard a crack. Was it the wood giving way? Or his fingers? There was no time to find out. He tried to swing his legs up, looking for another foothold, but the branch was breaking. He felt the wood crack under his fingers, felt his body begin to plummet. On the ground, the crew watched in horror. "No!" Chen screamed, but his voice was muffled by the sound of breaking branches. Jackie fell. There's a difference between falling on purpose, as Jackie had done hundreds of times in films, and falling out of control. When you fall on purpose, your body is prepared. You know when you'll hit the ground, how you'll roll to distribute the impact, how to protect the most vulnerable parts. When you fall out of control, your body panics. Jackie plummeted through the tree like a rag doll, hitting branch after branch. Each impact was an explosion of pain. Rib, arm, thigh, shoulder. He instinctively tried to protect himself, but he was spinning, without control over his orientation in space. Crack! His left arm hit a thick branch. Thud, his back hit another. Snap! A thin branch whipped his face, opening a cut above his eye. And then, after what seemed like an eternity but was probably only 3 seconds, he hit the ground. The sound was horrible. A dull, wet, definitive impact. Jackie fell partially on the mattresses, but his body had rotated during the fall, and he hit the ground at a bad angle. His head struck, not directly, because his shoulder cushioned part of the impact, but hard enough to make his ears ring and his vision darken at the edges. For a moment, there was total silence. Jackie lay on the ground, looking at the sky through the tree's branches. He blinked, trying to focus his vision. Blood flowed from the cut above his eye, tinging his vision red. He tried to breathe and felt a stabbing pain on his right side, broken ribs for sure. His first thought, absurdly, was, were the cameras rolling? His second thought was, can I move my toes? He tried. Right toes moved. Left toes, too. That was good. It meant his spine was intact. But when he tried to move his left arm, a wave of pain so intense shot through his body that he almost passed out. Then the screaming began. "Jackie, someone call an ambulance. Don't touch him. Don't move him. Jesus Christ, there's so much blood." Running feet, overlapping voices, someone kneeling beside him. It was Ah Lung, his face pale as paper. "Jackie, can you hear me, Jackie?" Jackie tried to speak, but his voice came out only as a hoarse whisper. "The cameras." "What? Don't try to talk, man. The ambulance is coming. You're going to be okay. Just the cameras," Jackie repeated louder this time. "Were they rolling?" Ah Lung looked at him with a mixture of disbelief and something that could be respect or could be certainty that his friend was completely insane. "Yes, Jackie. They were rolling. We got everything." Jackie closed his eyes and, incredibly, Something that could almost be a smile touched his bloodied lips. Good, then we can use the scene. And then he passed out. Jackie woke up in the hospital not knowing how much time had passed. It could be hours, days, or even weeks. Time had lost meaning. His entire body was a symphony of pain, each part playing a different note of agony. Slowly, he cataloged the damage. His head was bandaged. Something was immobilizing his left arm. Plaster, probably. His torso was wrapped in tight bandages that made breathing difficult. Even blinking hurt. "You're awake," the voice came from the left. Jackie turned his head, slowly, because even this minimal movement awakened new waves of pain, and saw an elderly doctor with metal-framed glasses and a stern expression. "How long was I out?" Jackie asked. His voice sounded strange, scratchy. 2 hours since you arrived. You regained consciousness in the ambulance but passed out again during the exams." The doctor consulted a clipboard. "Mr. Chan, you're lucky to be alive. Extremely lucky." Doesn't feel like luck," Jackie murmured. "Let me be clear about your situation," the doctor continued, with the tone of someone tired of dealing with reckless stuntmen and action actors. "You fractured your left arm in 2 places. 3 broken ribs. Fortunately, none punctured your lungs, though it was very close. Mild concussion, multiple contusions and lacerations, and a worrying hematoma near the spine that we'll monitor carefully." He removed his glasses and looked directly at Jackie. "Mr. Chan, you fell from approximately 5 meters, hit multiple obstacles during the fall, and struck the ground at a speed that should have killed or paralyzed you. The fact that you'll recover completely is, well, it's a miracle. Either you have an abnormally strong bone structure, or your ancestors made some kind of pact with supernatural entities." Jackie would have laughed if it didn't hurt so much. "Training since childhood," he explained. "Opera Academy, built resistance." "Training doesn't explain all this," the doctor replied. "But it doesn't matter. What matters now is your recovery. You'll need at least 8 weeks of rest. The arm will take longer, maybe 3 months until full strength. And I strongly recommend you reconsider your career. A man can't survive unscathed from so many falls. You're accumulating damage that will manifest when you get older." "How long? Until I can return to set?" The doctor gaped. "Did you not hear anything I said? You almost died today. Your body needs months to—" "How long?" Jackie insisted. "Until I can walk without help and minimally use my right arm." The doctor sighed, defeated. 2 weeks, maybe 3. But that doesn't mean you should— "Thank you, doctor." The door opened and Chen entered, followed by Ah Lung and 2 other crew members. Chen had that expression of someone who had spent the last hours alternating between genuine concern and panic about the production schedule. "Jackie, thank God the doctor said you'll be okay, so I thought, not that I'm worried about the film when you're injured, but—" "Chen," Jackie interrupted him gently. "What's the damage?" "Damage? To the schedule. How much time did we lose?" Chen exchanged glances with the others. "Jackie, that doesn't matter now. The important thing is for you to recover. We can adjust the schedule, film other scenes first, maybe even rewrite." "We're not rewriting anything," Jackie said firmly, "and I'll be back in 3 weeks." "3 weeks?" the doctor practically shouted. "I just said you need at least 8. 3 weeks, Jackie repeated, looking at Chen. "We can film scenes that don't require the left arm. Dialogue, close-ups, maybe some modified fight sequences. In 6 weeks, I can do light acrobatics. In 2 months, I'm back to normal." "Jackie, you're insane," Ah Lung said, but there was admiration in his voice. "Completely, absolutely insane." "No," Jackie corrected. "I'm committed. There's a difference." The following 3 weeks were some of the most difficult in Jackie's life, and that included his years at the Peking Opera Academy. The physical pain was intense, but worse than that was the forced inactivity. Jackie Chan was a man defined by movement. His identity was intertwined with his ability to do things others couldn't. Being trapped in a hospital bed, then confined to an apartment, unable to do even the most basic activities without pain, was a form of psychological torture. But he used this time to reflect. Late at night, when the pain was too intense to sleep, he lay awake thinking about the fall. He replayed every second in his mind, analyzing what had gone wrong. The wind, he should have waited for the wind to pass. The branch, he should have insisted on more rigorous testing. The approach angle, he should have adjusted after seeing the weather conditions. But even with all these shoulds, a fundamental part of Jackie didn't regret it. That fall, as terrible as it had been, would create a scene the audience would remember. And in the end, wasn't that what mattered? Wasn't that his job? To create moments that made people feel something real? Something visceral? The problem was knowing where to draw the line. Where did commitment to art become reckless self-destruction? These were questions without easy answers. His regular visitors during recovery included crew members, other stuntmen, and occasionally more famous actors who respected what Jackie was trying to do in cinema. Each visit followed a similar pattern. Initial concern, followed by relief seeing he was alive, and then, inevitably, the question, "Why do you keep doing this?" His answer varied, but the core was always the same. "Because it's what I know how to do. It's who I am." One visit, however, was different. It came from a much older stuntman named Han, someone who had worked in films since the 1950s, when the industry was even more dangerous and less regulated. Han sat beside Jackie's bed and remained silent for a long time before speaking. "You know how many stuntmen I've seen die?" he finally said. 13. 13 men. Some of them much more skilled than you or me, who made a mistake, had a moment of bad luck, or simply went too far in a scene. Jackie said nothing, just listened. "And you know how many stuntmen I've seen retire with permanent disability? Lost movement in limbs, lived with chronic pain for the rest of their lives, developed neurological problems years after repeated head traumas?" Han paused. "I stopped counting after 30. "Why are you telling me this?" Jackie asked. "Because you're good, kid. You're the best I've ever seen. But being the best doesn't make you invincible. It makes you arrogant, and arrogance in this business is the same as a death sentence. Only the execution is slow and comes in installments." Han stood up to leave, but stopped at the door. "That cruel master you had at the Opera Academy, he taught you to endure anything, to never give up, to push beyond limits. Those are valuable lessons. But you know what nobody taught you? When to stop, when to say no, when to recognize that some risks aren't worth it." And with that, he left, leaving Jackie alone with his thoughts. Exactly 3 weeks after the accident, against the vehement objections of the doctor and the concerns of practically everyone who knew him, Jackie Chan returned to set. He still wore a cast on his left arm. His ribs still hurt with every deep breath. The cut above his eye had left a new scar to add to his collection. But he was standing, he was moving, and he was determined to finish the film. The atmosphere on set when he arrived was strange. The crew was clearly happy to see him alive and relatively well, but there was also a palpable tension. Everyone knew they had witnessed something terrible, something that could easily have ended in tragedy. And now here was Jackie, back as if nothing had happened, ready to continue. "Good to see you back, Jackie," Chen said, trying to sound casual but failing miserably. "We thought we could start with some dialogue scenes today. Nothing too strenuous." "Show me the tree scene," Jackie interrupted him. "What?" "The footage of the accident. I want to see it." Chen hesitated. "Jackie, I don't think it's a good idea for you to watch that now. Maybe when you're fully recovered." "Chen." Jackie's tone left no room for argument. "Show me." They set up a television and video player in one of the set tents. The crew gathered around, nobody really wanting to watch again, but also unable to pull away. Chen pressed play. On screen, Jackie ran across the roof, chased by the villains. His form was perfect, every movement fluid and controlled. He reached the edge and jumped, a beautiful, confident arc through the air. And then everything went wrong. Watching from the safety of 3 weeks later, with the knowledge that he had survived, it was still horrifying. The moment his hand slipped from the branch, the expression of surprise and fear that crossed his face, the uncontrolled fall, his body ricocheting through the branches like a stone down a mountain, and then the impact. Even on the relatively low-quality video recording, you could hear the sound. You could see the unnatural way his body bent as it hit the ground. You could see the moment when he became completely still, and the second of absolute pause before everyone started running. The recording continued, capturing the chaos that followed. People screaming, someone running to call for help, Ah Lung kneeling beside Jackie, the pool of blood slowly expanding under his head. When the recording ended, the silence in the tent was sepulchral. "We can use it," Jackie finally said. Everyone looked at him as if he had completely lost his mind. "Jackie, you can't be serious," Chen protested. It's a recording of you almost dying. We can't put that in a movie." "Why not?" Jackie asked calmly. "It's real. It's impactful. It's exactly the kind of moment that makes people understand that what I do isn't trickery, isn't CGI, isn't movie magic. It's real." "It's too real," Ah Lung murmured. "It's disturbing." "Good." Jackie stood up, ignoring the stab of pain in his ribs. "Let it be disturbing. Let people see the price of the entertainment I provide. I won't hide the mistakes, won't pretend everything always goes perfectly. We'll include this in the credits, along with the other blooper scenes. We'll show that I'm human." And that's exactly what they did. The film was released 6 months later, and as Jackie had predicted, the accident scene, shown during the end credits, along with other bloopers and mistakes, became one of the most talked about moments. People watched through their fingers, horrified and fascinated in equal measure. But something deeper had changed in Jackie Chan. He continued making action films, continued performing his own stunts, continued pushing the limits of what was possible on screen. But there was a subtle difference in his approach. He became more meticulous in planning, more willing to listen to safety concerns, more aware that every dangerous scene had the potential to be the last. He also began intensively training a new generation of stuntmen and action coordinators, transmitting not just his techniques, but also the harder lessons. "Yes, be brave," he would tell them. "Yes, push your limits. But remember, you're not just risking your own life. You're risking the livelihood of hundreds of people who depend on this film. You're risking the public's trust. You're risking the future viability of practical action cinema." Years later, in interviews, Jackie would talk about that accident as a turning point. "That's when I really understood my mortality," he would say. "Before that, I knew intellectually that I could die, but I didn't feel it. That day, for a few seconds while I was falling, I really thought it was the end, and that changes you. The scar above his eye remained, a permanent reminder. Sometimes in future filming, cameras would capture it in close-ups, and dedicated fans would recognize that's from the tree scene. It had become part of his mythology, another story in the growing legend of Jackie Chan. But for Jackie, it wasn't about mythology. It was about something more fundamental, about the thin line between bravery and recklessness, between commitment and self-destruction, between art and madness. The decision to include the accident in the film's credits had unexpected ramifications. It started a tradition that would become a trademark of Jackie Chan films. The outtakes shown during the credits, where the audience could see not just successful stunts, but also the mistakes, the falls, and the moments where things went wrong. This humanized Jackie in a way few action stars could achieve. While other actors cultivated auras of invincibility, Jackie deliberately showed his vulnerability. Look, his films seemed to say, I'm human, I make mistakes, I feel pain, but I keep trying. This authenticity resonated deeply with audiences. People didn't admire him despite his failures. They admired him because of his willingness to show those failures, to get up after each fall, to continue even when bleeding and hurt. The tree scene also became study material in film schools and stuntman training programs around the world. Teachers would use it as an example of what happens when multiple risk factors combine. Poor weather conditions, schedule pressure, overconfidence, inadequate safety testing. Look at this moment, instructors would say, pausing the video in the second before the jump. Look at Jackie's posture, the wind speed, the movement of the branches. There are at least 5 indicators that this scene should have been postponed. But nobody said no, and this is the result. It was a brutal but necessary lesson. In action cinema, the line between a memorable scene and a fatality can be as thin as a few centimeters of unexpected wind. Decades later, when Jackie Chan was already a worldwide cinema legend, recognized on all continents, he would continue looking back at that day as one of the most defining of his career. People always ask me what my most dangerous scene was, he said in an interview years later. And I always think of that tree, not because it was the worst fall I had. Technically, I've had worse accidents, but because it was the one that taught me most about the limits of madness. The reporter asked, do you regret doing that jump? Jackie thought for a long time before answering. I regret the circumstances. I should have waited for the wind to pass. I should have tested the branches better. I should have listened to the people who were worried. But do I regret being who I am, doing the kind of cinema I do? No, because that accident, as terrible as it was, reinforced something important. What I do matters because it's real, and I can't be real without accepting the risk. This complex balance between art and self-destruction, between bravery and recklessness, defines not just Jackie Chan's career, but the entire tradition of practical action cinema. In an era increasingly dominated by digital effects and CGI doubles, Jackie represents something that's rapidly becoming extinct, the belief that there's genuine artistic value in putting your own body at risk for entertainment. It's a problematic philosophy, certainly. It's difficult for doctors, safety experts, and anyone with common sense to watch Jackie Chan deliberately hurt himself and call it art. There are legitimate arguments that glorifying this type of risk encourages others to put themselves in unnecessary danger. But there's also something undeniably powerful in his purity of purpose. Jackie Chan never pretended to be anything other than what he was, a man willing to bleed for his art, to transform his body into tool and canvas, to pay physical prices most couldn't imagine in the name of creating cinema moments that would remain with audiences for generations. Today, when Jackie Chan looks in the mirror, he sees a living map of his career. Each scar tells a story. The one above the eye, the tree, the one on the chin, a wall jump that went wrong, the one on the shoulder, a meticulously choreographed car accident that wasn't as meticulous as it should have been. His body aches on cold days. He has arthritis in multiple joints. There are movements he used to do without thinking that are now impossible. The price of youth spent in pursuit of physical perfection is being collected as he ages. But he doesn't regret it, because when he turns on the television and sees one of his films, when he watches young stuntmen studying his techniques, when he receives letters from fans saying how his performances inspired them, he knows it was all worth it. The day Jackie Chan almost died on set wasn't the end of his story. It was an important footnote in a much larger narrative about dedication, sacrifice, and the relentless pursuit of excellence, no matter the cost. And whenever anyone asks if he would do it all again, knowing the risks, knowing the pain, knowing how it would end, his answer is always the same, without hesitation. Because Jackie Chan understands something few of us do. That some passions are worth any price, that there's power in committing totally to something, even, especially, when it demands blood, that legacies aren't built through safe choices, but through moments where you risk everything because you believe it's worth it. The fall from the tree could have been his end, Instead, it became just another chapter in the legend of a man who transformed his willingness to fall into an art form of its own. And every time the camera captured that fall, every time an audience watched those terrible seconds, they witnessed something rare and precious. Absolute authenticity, real pain, real risk, a human being pushing to the absolute limit of what the body can endure, all for a few moments of cinema. Is that madness? Probably. Is that art? Arguably. Is that Jackie Chan? Absolutely.